Lyman was the youngest of all the brothers, and he used to tell stories about what it was like growing up to be the youngest. One of the stories was about the family outhouse, and so he'd be in the outhouse using it, and his brothers would come up behind the outhouse and yell, "Tiger, tiger!" And Dad would jump out without pulling up his pants up and run out of the outhouse, worried about tiger, tiger. And from the tales of it, it sounded like it happened more than once, so he thought that tiger was coming over and over again, apparently. But one of the things about being the youngest of all those brothers is he never had new shoes. He always had hand-me-down shoes from his brothers. So a pair of shoes would go from Art to Guy to Ralph to Harold, William, maybe I have it in the wrong order, then finally to Dad. And one of the things we talked about was how important it was to have, and how the government supported all of the people in eastern Montana. And his response to that was the postman always had new shoes. And what he meant by that is that a government job is a pretty good job. The postman always had new shoes as compared to everybody else trying to raise a family in eastern Montana. One of the stories he told was his Uncle Frank Waters' house was half a mile or a mile away, and they used to go over there at night and listen to the radio because the Amsdens didn't have a radio, but the Waters, who were wealthier, had a radio, and they'd listen to old-time radio shows like The Shadow. And The Shadow, Mom, you remember, The Shadow would end with, "What evil lurks in the heart?" No, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows. So can you imagine late at night in the summer listening to The Shadow and running home through the wheat fields worrying about what evil lurks in the hearts of men as you race back to your home? When we were little, my sisters and I used to, not very politely, brag about the size of our Christmas piles. Mom and Dad used to come out and make big piles of toys for Christmas, and whoever had the biggest pile it was important growing up to have the biggest pile of. So I asked my dad once what he got for Christmas, and he said, well, we'd have a piece of hard candy or an orange, and that was his Christmas. So it always made me realize how much better off we all are than the people who homesteaded out here and lived in such a hardscrabble life. Right, Mom? One of the stories he told, I was driving with him once, and this guy came down the road and he had his blinker on, and Dad said, "Be careful of that guy." And I said, "Why? He's turning right here." And he said that he was riding with Grandpa Early once, and Grandpa Early said, "Don't trust those turn signals. You never know if they've forgotten them or left them on." And Dad was about ready to pull out, and my Grandpa Early said, "Don't do that." And sure enough, the guy went straight and would have T-boned him but for. So every time I see somebody now on the highway with their turn signal on, I think of that story and how Grandpa Early told my dad not to pull out in front of somebody with the turn indicator because they might not realize it's on. That's all I can think of.